Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is use racks to build a cool bass. So the first thing you guys are going to do is make a new MIDI track, and I have one right here, Command-Shift-T. And I've given you the MIDI for this bass line, and all I did was extract the MIDI from the bass they gave us. But let me pull this in. You're going to take the MIDI that I've given you and pull it into your MIDI track. There you go. Okay. Right now, if I press play, there is nothing. Remember, MIDI you have to give an instrument to. Okay. So for an instrument for your bass, I want you guys to go into Serum, drag it on there. Okay. And the instrument I want you to choose as a starting point is this Reese bass. So go down into basses and choose Death Reese. All right. Now, check it out. Now, while we're talking about Reese bass, because we're doing drum and bass, I need all of you to go research what Reese bass actually means, and you should be able to tell me who Kevin Saunderson is. All right, so we have our Reese bass, and this is what our bass sounds like. That's actually mostly the sound I want, but I want to add another sound using racks to ground it a little bit, okay? So I'm going to go into my Serum sound, and we can do this with any other sound. I'm going to press Command-G, like we would to create a rack. There we go. Open up the instrument rack right here, okay? And now we're able to add another instrument. Okay, so I'm going to go into Instruments. I'm going to go, you can choose whatever you guys want. Just for this example, I'm going to go into Operator, I'm going to go into Basses, and I'm choosing this organ bass, which sounds like an unlikely candidate. But it will ground this and even out the Reese bass just a little bit, and you won't really hear it. It'll just add an element that the Reese bass doesn't have. So if you listen to both, and right now they're at equal levels, okay, they're both going to be playing. This is what our bass sounds like. Okay, now I could mess with the levels. I could make the Serum bass a little bit louder, the Reese bass a little, or the organ bass a little quieter. You can totally, it's up to you guys how you're gonna change these levels. And again, you can choose any two instruments. I do recommend the Reese bass for at least one of them. But let's make this a little bit interesting. Let's go into this key right here, and let's watch here when we press play. Okay, one thing we might want to do is make the organ bass here only play for the lower of these bass notes. Do you guys see I grabbed it? So now we have to kind of watch it again. Okay, so you can see visually that the organ bass is only being triggered sometimes, right? Let's watch one more time. No organ bass. Now it's playing. Now it's playing. Now it's not playing. Now it is playing. So that's one way I might customize my sound a little bit. And the other thing we're also going to do eventually is combine it with the original bass that came with the track, which will give it the sub. Okay, so now we have our sound. At least I think I have my sound. We might go in later and tweak it. Now I actually want to work with the MIDI notes themselves. So this is the MIDI for just the verse right now. I'm going to click on it. Now, if you've listened to any of those drum and bass clips I've given you, you know that rarely do we hear a bass just play long notes like this in drum and bass. In drum and bass, usually we have an active bass, okay? So, I want you guys to put your grid in 1/8, okay, like I have, and you are going to take the same notes. Do not change the notes, but you are going to, instead of having the F sharp here, for instance, play this whole measure, I'm going to shorten it, and I'm going to add some other attacks. For instance, and check it out, when I added those, the velocity down here was way too low. I'm going to pull it up. Okay, so I'm giving it some rhythm. Again, for the A, I'm going to keep the length. I am not messing with the length, but I am going to add some other attacks. Again, the velocities get screwed up when I do this, so I'm going to grab them all this way this time and pull them up. Remember, velocity is how hard you hit it. These don't all have to be the same, but you do want to be able to hear them. Okay, same thing for the B. I'm doing this, it looks random, but I've done this so many times that I know kind of what's going to sound good. But you guys can play with different rhythmic variations. The E, same thing, give it some rhythmic variety. Grab those two velocities and pull them up. Okay, so here, for instance, this would be my first whoops. This would be my beginning part of the bass. Okay, so in context, let me play that with the drums so you can hear what that would sound like with the drums. Okay, now that is just 8 measures. Okay, that is just 8 measures. And my requirement for you guys is that you are not copying and pasting your drums the entire time. So when you are using the verse bass, which is this MIDI bass, you need to, for the next 8 measures, and I'm going to zoom in, it needs to be different. For the next 8 measures, it needs to be different. And for the next 8 measures, it needs to be different. All right? So you're going to add rhythmic variety. Now, at a point where it starts to sound ridiculous, start to take away some of the rhythmic variation so it doesn't get in the way. All right? So you're going to use this MIDI for verse 1, and you're going to use it for verse 2, and I should not see any copy and pasting. Every 8 measures should sound completely, not completely, but every 8 measures should sound slightly different.